Hey, thanks for joining us on another episode of Construction Tech Talk. This is technology editor Charles Rathman, and this is one of what we call our We Talk to Smart People episodes. And there's a simple reason we call them that because, yeah, you figured it out. We talk to smart people. Today, we're not going to fall down on that job for you at all because I've got my very talented and capable associate here, Lori DeToro, the editor of OEM Off Highway. How are you doing, ma'am?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Fantastic. And today, we're going to be spending some time talking about a movement that we're seeing in telematics and prognostic and predictive and prescriptive maintenance. And you and I, Lori, we've been immersed a little bit, particularly covering what Cummins has been doing, most
Yes.
notably with their vendor Elevat, which is an IoT technology vendor. Why don't you kind of give us a quick overview of what's happening on this front?
Well, a couple months ago, they announced that partnership. And so now they have announced some other collaborators that are working with them. They are talking with and working with STW Technic and also partnering with Versatile Tractors to improve the operation and management of the tractors for service teams and for end users.
So let's talk a little bit about exactly how that's going to work. And what I'll do now is I'm going to queue up a quick video from Digital Solutions business leader at Cummins, Ed Hopkins. I had a talk with him the other day.
So on the machines that are CAN bus, that have a CAN bus, so that have controllers on the machines, there's the opportunity to read data off the machine. So you could work with a provider to pull data off the machine that is standard J1939. So this would be the SAE J1939 standard. So there's standard parameters and it's relatively generic. The way they wrote the standard is for all engine manufacturers. If you get a certain SPN, FMI, basically if you get these certain codes or diagnostic messages, all engine manufacturers are basically put into a very common response. So it's fuel injector or fuel system or oil pressure. But Cummins has we have a little bit more granularity or a little bit more detail that we would like to provide these customers than just the standard, right? So what we did with Elevat, and we're also doing with other providers like Elevat, is we're basically getting the telematics device to speak the Cummins language. And what I mean by that is there are certain parameters that that we've asked Elevat to pull in a certain frequency, and they send it to Cummins, and they allow us to process that data. And what we do with that data is we have algorithms, and we also have service history, and we have we've got 10,000 dealers around the world that we are recording each service event. So the way it works is when we get that data and we kind of run it off of our data lake and we process it, we can provide back an actionable response based on history of that type of engine with that type of issue. So it has a little bit more meaningful response than just the standard J1939. So and ultimately, what we're just trying to be easier to do business with our OEMs and our customers. We want to get that 24/7 real-time response so that these owners or fleet managers or operators, so they can have relevant information to help them be successful. And because we know these products are getting more and more complicated with emission standards and there's lots of sensors and lots of diagnostic messaging, so it gets kind of confusing. So we're trying to simplify that. All of the modern off-highway machines have a thing called the CAN bus. So the CAN bus is where all of the electronic systems communicate. So on that CAN bus is where Cummins, working with companies like Elevat, we are pulling parameters off of the CAN bus. It's kind of like the backbone of the all the data that's on the machine, and it's all public. It's public data, right? So that's where we are getting our indicators of how unhealthy is the engine, and that's where we send back through Elevate system that recommendation. So really, as far as components, the customer or the OEM, they just need to install a device that ties into the CAN bus that already has been integrated with Cummins, and so Elevate has completed this work, and then that's where we're able to give kind of that next level, deeper diagnostic, actionable messages. We're able to give some more. There's a little more meat on the message than just a standard J1939 message. The engine ECM, or the engine control module, is processing data from all sorts of sources, from sensors, and also on the after treatment we have sensors as well. And so when we notice that things are outside of the bounds, then we have a very good understanding of how the OEM has designed their equipment. And so that's when we start populating those messages with this is an OEM challenge. This is where the challenge is sourced. The OEM's component is not working properly. Like, for example, if you're in the cold environment, like say 13 degrees Fahrenheit and below, you're getting down near freezing. You're just right around freezing point. Well, that DEF, or the diesel exhaust fluid, will freeze, right? So, because it's, what is it, 2/3 water, 1/3 this urea. And so if those lines, those DEF lines, start to freeze, they cannot flow. If that fluid doesn't flow, then our after treatment will not work correctly. We will not get the DEF liquid into the exhaust stream in order to convert the NOx to carbon dioxide, right? So we have sensors before and after these after treatments, so we know how effective our system is working. And so then we start flagging, say, okay, this is a DEF supply issue. Either the line's frozen, the pump's bad, and then also in the DEF tank there's a level sensor, right? So there's a gauge that says your DEF is starting to get low, and our engine starts to alert. If that DEF level gets too low, we throw a code that says, please top this off. If this gets too low and runs out, well, you are clearly going to be outside of the emissions bound, and you will definitely have a derate then.
So it seems like what Cummins is doing is taking the SAE standard telematics data and layering another prescriptive maintenance layer on top of that in partnership with their technology and component vendors. So they can provide greater insights to speed resolution for repairs, provide an idea of criticality when there is an error. Well, gee, can I run this for the rest of the day? Do I need to stop? Um, what's your thought on that, Lori?
Well, I think that's really important, because if you have a piece of machinery and you keep getting alarms, but they don't really mean anything, or you don't know what they mean, then you're just looking for what the problem is. But if you can get a prescription or a diagnosis of, well, your engine is overheating and you need to stop now and fix it. Or this isn't good, but you can operate the rest of the day. When you're finished with your work, stop and fix this issue. And so having that information will help the end user and the service providers do a better job of continuing their work, being optimized in what they're doing, and then fixing real problems instead of worrying about problems that aren't real or can be dealt with later.
Let me just kind of push play on this other clip here with Adam Livesay, who's CCO and co-founder at Elevate, where he kind of explains, hey, we're kind of taking this data and marrying up with diagnostics information from Cummins, and really kind of providing that bridge between the OEM, the component provider, the service technician, and the end customer.
When we talked previously, we talked about how ecosystems are starting to work with each other, or starting to talk with each other to provide a better solution for the customer. That is the vision and strategy with Cummins and with Elevate. Our OEMs are common OEMs that buy and use and service Cummins engines, if they have the Elevate software on there, they're going to be able to get all of these diagnostic messages, these proprietary diagnostic messages from Cummins. When they get faults and notifications, the Elevate software platform will talk with the Cummins back office. We will get recommendations from Cummins on how to fix that engine, right? Here's the probability of what the fix is. Is it an easy fix? Is it something you can run to the end of the week? This is going to have a huge amount of benefits from when you fix your engine, what parts and components you'd roll on your service truck, um, to decrease the downtime and improve the uptime. This is going to be massive. What we love about this is, when we came into the industry, we always thought that suppliers would start to work with companies like Elevate and OEMs to provide this information. I would say Cummins is the first major global supplier to move this way, that have taken the position. The more that we partner with companies like Elevate, the better it's going to be for our end customer.
So what Adam seems to be telling us is that, the quality of diagnostics and prescriptive maintenance data coming for construction equipment users is going to get a lot better. But Cummins does seem to be kind of on the leading edge here. Are you seeing anything else like this happening elsewhere?
Um, it's not as prevalent as it will be in the future. I think you see this more in the process industries right now, where different companies are partnering to make sure that all the data is coming through one pane of glass, and you're getting alarms on critical equipment and not every piece of equipment. And I do think that this will expand, but I think the trend of collaboration between companies is growing in the industry. There's a huge collaboration with Shell Mining, with 9 different companies, including some automation, some telematics companies, all together to work in the mining industry. And I consider this the beginning of a very large wave of companies collaborating to provide this kind of information.
So let's take a look, like maybe a few years out. And this is the time of year we're recording this in November. This video is going to be in a Google search for a good long time, but it's now the November 2022. By the time we're like 2 years out from now, how do you think this space is going to look different for the OEMs that you serve and write about, and the construction equipment operators and owners that other parts of our little family of publications deal with?
Well, I think that you're going to see more OEMs and more equipment have these full prescriptive um, technologies included with them. And I think that the more we see this happening and the more it becomes a competitive advantage for the OEMs to provide this kind of information, it's just going to snowball. And I think in 2 years, more than half of equipment being produced, especially critical equipment, will have this kind of technology.
Let's hope so, because people have a lot of capital investment in their construction equipment. And if you're not sure whether it's going to be ready and available and serviceable at that critical time in a project life cycle, I mean, that's kind of a concern. So, parting thought, what do you think folks ought to take away from this news between Elevate and Cummins?
That we're seeing the beginning of a huge trend, that more companies will be doing this, and larger OEMs who may not be collaborating with others are also trying to pull all of this information together within their equipment using open API so that everything can be integrated. Bosch Rexroth is doing that with a lot of their equipment from Impact in June. Everything they're doing is open API so it can be integrated within whatever system. So I think the prep work is happening, but I think you can take away that this is the beginning of a trend that will only grow and become more important for OEMs to have in place to be competitive.
Okay, well, we'll both be looking forward to that. And You, Lori, myself, others here at For Construction Pros, OEM Off Highway, Advantage Business Media, Iron Pros, we're going to be immersed in this up to our armpits on a daily basis because there's a lot going on. And we know that you need to understand what the heck it is so that you can be ready and make appropriate purchasing and specifying decisions for your business. Please keep on coming back here to Iron Pros and check out Lori's excellent work on OEM Off Highway. And we'll see you online here again soon.